Welcome to today's SANUM webinar. The topic of the webinar is Viruses Know No Boundaries. In order to get an idea of how many viruses there are in the world, a comparison with the star is interesting. There are more viruses than stars, namely 10 to the 33 viruses and 10 to the 25 stars. What are viruses? Viruses are often seen in connection with bacteria and lower fungi as microorganisms. That means as living beings, which they are not. They have no metabolism of their own, thus no own protein synthesis and no possibility of energy production. They consist of their genetic material, in example DNA or RNA, is packed often into a protein capsule. In order to multiply, they required a plant, animal, or human host cell, depending on the type of virus. They docked to his host cell, comparable to the lunar model Eagle from the Apollo 11 spacecraft, and inject their genetic material into the cells in order to then use the cell organelles of the host cell for their own virus replication. If the cell is full of viruses, it bursts, lyses, and releases thousands of viruses into the environment. They can also persist in the host cell and remain dormant for years, so-called slow virus infection. An example of this are herpes viruses, which can reactivate it by special stimuli and then trigger diseases. Viruses persist, integrate in the DNA of the host, replicate, and lyse the cells. They use the organism as the basis of life. Their life cycle is not primary and is not geared towards individual destruction of the host organism or the entire population of host organisms. Viruses colonized humans together with bacteria and fungi. Together, they form an ecosystem. In comparison, humans consist 10 trillion human cells, 100 trillion bacterial cells, and 100,000 trillion viruses. Which significance do viruses have for humans? Viruses exist on Earth long before humans. If we look at the evolution of life on Earth as a 10-meter-long timeline, then viruses come in the beginning, followed by bacteria and fungi. Today's human develops the last centimeters at the end of the timeline. From a scientific point of view, viruses have helped to shape mankind. Approximately 8% of the human genome today is of viral origin. Viruses are therefore not primarily pathogens, but change and shape the genetic material of plants, humans, and animals. Through our food, in example raw food, we constantly ingest many viruses, which also have an important function in the intestine. A French research group published a paper in 2019 in which they speak of a virobiota in the intestine, analogous to the microbiota, the bacteria flora of the intestine, which are also interact with the immune system and can train it. In addition, the viruses are probably also involved in the regulation of the intestinal flora, in which they can take bacteria as a host cell and thus genetically modify or eliminate them. However, viruses also have function outside the intestine. Endogenous viruses in the cells of human DNA, for example, are involved in the development of cells during placental formation. But we often associate diseases with viruses. Viruses, scary pathogens. 2/3 of the viruses that cause diseases in humans have their origin in wild animals. Why is that? Human civilization is spreading more and more. The living space of wild animals is being lost. The animals adapt more and more to the human living space. The contact between humans and wild animals become closer. Animals that a few decades ago could only be found in their own ecosystem in forests and meadows now live in large cities. In some countries, wild animals are part of the diet, an example, bats. Due to the closeness between humans and wildlife, the change is greater, the chance is greater that viruses will change their host and either infect other animal species or humans. A strategy by which the viruses also continue to secure their own livelihood. An example of this is the SARS family of viruses. These viruses, which are transmitted from animals to humans, often differ greatly in their antigenic external structure from viruses which are known to the general human immune system. For this reason, they can lead to strong immunological reaction and diseases in a large number of people, which often heals independently to the diversity and mutability of the immune system. The cause of the disease is individually different, and here the age of the patient also plays an important role. At a higher age, the function of the immune system decreases, but also a generally weakened immune system or chronic diseases can affect the healing process. Now I come to a defense mechanism of the organisms against viruses. First defense mechanism against virus infection is the mucous membrane. Viruses that enter the body via the air we breathe or through direct contacts via the hands must overcome an initial barrier, namely the mucous membrane, connected to the ciliated epithelium of the upper airways. These form a physical and biochemical barrier, often prevent further penetrating of germs into the body. Moisture retention of the mucous membrane is mainly due to oral saliva, tear fluid, and bronchial mucus. Through the Waldeischer pharyngeal ring, which consists of tonsils, the immunological cellular defense is then additional carried out. Especially in viral diseases, the activity of the natural killer cells is important, which detect and eliminate virus-infected cells and thus prevent further spread of the virus. These primary defense of the mucous membrane in the upper respiratory tract can prevent a more serious infection of the lower respiratory tract, such as the lungs. What impairs the immune function of the mucous membranes? Firstly, mechanical damage of the mucous membrane, in example by toxins and lack of fluid, could allow the viruses to pass through. Secondly, previously unknown receptors could exist on the mucosal cells that outwit the immune system, so that the viruses enter the body via a kind of Trojan horses. In which patients group could the immune function of the mucous membranes be reduced? In advantage age, the number of stem cells, which are the precursor cells of the immune system, decreases. As a result, the acute immune defense in older people may be weakened. A weakening is also generally present in immunosuppressed patients. Diabetes often suffer from dry, scaly skin and dry mucous membranes. An elevated blood sugar level leads to increased excretion of glucose and water via the kidneys. The body lacks the fluid excreted in this way, which is also noticeable on the mucous membranes. With a well-adjusted diabetic, the drying of the mucous membrane can be avoided. Here, a blood sugar level of less than 180 should be aimed for. Other diseases associated with dry mucous membranes are rheumatic diseases. Also, acute and persistent stress, which is cause less saliva to be produced, leads to dry mucous membranes. Which factors can contribute to a viral infection of the respiratory tract? First of all, poor breathing air due to dust and environmental toxins should be considered. Smokers are also affected, as the smoke with the toxin dries out, the smoke with the toxin dries out and degenerate the oral mucus more quickly. In addition to the reduced protection against viruses due to the weakened mucous membranes barrier, a consequence of this is also frequent inflammation in the mouth. In example, periodontitis. In viruses that attack the respiratory tract, damage to the first barrier is one reason for the increased incidence of lower respiratory tract diseases. In addition, patients with chronic lung diseases such as COPD and asthma are particularly at risk. What hygiene measures are recommended to protect against virus infection? When we look at viruses that cause the respiratory tract infection, they are often transmitted in droplets via the air we breathe. This is called droplet infection. Infected patients can transmit the virus to the mucous membrane of other people to spreading, coughing, and sneezing. Therefore, infected persons should not sneeze freely, but in the crook of the arm, for example, and not in their hands, as the virus can then be transmitted to other objects like door handles. In addition, shaking hands should be avoided, and in the case of particular aggressive viruses, this patient should wear a mouth guard. To avoid infection, healthy and sick persons should wash their hands with soap for at least 30 seconds and then disinfect them. An additional feel-good measure is to humidify the room air with a spray of bergamot oil. This is an essential oil which has an antiviral and invigoration effect on the psyche. How can mucous membranes as a primary defense border be strengthened? Mucous membranes belong to the immune system. To strengthen the immune system, there are different ways to look at the body and psyche. These include mainly nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle. Today, I describe the importance of the first stage of the immune defense, which is carried out by mucous membranes, and how they can be protected preventively. First of all, a good fruit supply through water and herbal teas should be considered. Moisturizing the nose with a nasal spray containing water and salt is another local measure. Eating linseed and grilled grass, grilled care for the mucous membranes by covering them with a slimy layer. In addition, the function of the gastrointestinal tract are activated and the important intestine-associated immune system is vitalized. This also has a positive influence on the function of the lungs, which is physiologically in close relation to the intestine. In addition, some medicinal plants, so-called mucilaginous drugs, offer the possibility of protection mucous membranes. These contain mucopolysaccharides, which protect the mucous membrane of the throat, larynx, and trachea. This includes marshmallows, Althea officinalis, the mallow, Malva sylvestris, and Icelandic moss, Cetraria islandica. These can be prepared and consumed as teas. For additional support of the general antiviral defense of the body, the following medicinal plants can be used as examples. The pink rock rose, Cistus incanus, it contains, among other things, high molecular polyphenolic substances. Plant extracts are not absorbed by the cell and unfold their antiviral potential through direct interaction with the virus. They coat the viruses, thus reducing or preventing the adhesion and penetration of the viruses to the host cells. If the polyphenols are removed from the extract, it lost the antiviral effect. Carp Pelargonium sidoides, the Carp Pelargonium originates from South Africa and belongs to the family of the kranzballs. An extract from the roots is used. After ingestion, interferon production is increased and more defensins are released. This combination enables an antiviral effect. Nasturtium, Tropaeolum major, and horseradish, Amoratia rusticana, this species originally comes from South Central America, but is now found worldwide in the temperate zone. The leaves and flowers are used. Horseradish belongs to the cruciferous family. Its original home is southern and eastern Europe. The root is used. The main active ingredient in this is this mustard oil glycosides containing in the plant. Both have an antibacterial and antiviral effect. The cells are protected from destruction by a virus, and natural killer cells are activated. Now I come to the end of the webinar. In order to specifically support the mucous membranes and the immune system in general, we offer unique medicines from SANUM, which are made from specific microorganisms. Many therapists use the SANUM remedies to vitalize the intestine and lung functions. Questions concerning the SANUM therapy should be addressed directly to your therapist or SANUM representative in your country. Thank you very much for your attention. Stay healthy.